Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 99. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys are back with us for this Tuesday. Trying to go back to the Tuesday-Friday schedule for the next couple of weeks leading up to the 2021 NFL Draft, which is just about 3 weeks away. So really exciting stuff. Dave, how you doing?
It's beginning to look a lot like draft miss. No, it's getting there, right? Month of April here. The pro day circuit's starting to wind down this final week here, and I guess what the next 3 weeks or so we'll be going even harder and heavier into the tape on certain prospects. So we got a great list of. You're doing a fantastic job on the. You amaze me almost every day, some of these pro day finds that you have. I mean, it's obviously the most complete and always has been for a while now, the most complete resource on the internet when it comes to the Steelers and their participation in pro days. And boy, that makes it a lot easier to look at some of these clues. And I think pretty soon you're going to be getting back into the what the Steelers look for type series. And yep. I mean, we should have this thing narrowed down to a pretty good, probably 75 names or so. I would think or hope here within the next couple of weeks. So exciting time of the season, and wanted to make sure we start off this podcast by taking our hat off and handing it to the Steelers Depot contributors, man, because they have just been. What are we up to now, Alex?
I've lost count. I mean, we're got to be closing in on around 200 player profiles, though. And
then for this early, I mean, they are just plowing through them, and they're doing such a good job, and it helps me learn more about these guys in a quick look as well too. So props to those guys. The content has just been absolutely amazing on Steelers Depot this offseason.
Absolutely. Put together a great team, guys who are just self-starters, just tell them to send in reports and they do it. And it's been almost overwhelming, but I mean that in the best way possible. So got a lot more content for you guys coming up on player profiles leading up basically to the day before the draft.
Absolutely. All right. Where to? Should we revisit the pro day circuit or what?
Yeah, we can do that here briefly. Let me go ahead and pull up the list here. Nothing major has happened the last couple of days. I've tried to go back through some pro days where I didn't have a name for, just knew that they were there to try to identify some guys, and I was able to do so, fortunately, but they weren't anything earth-shattering. Mark Gorsuch at Louisiana Lafayette, Kelvin Fisher at North Texas and SMU, Mark Bruner at Oregon, all area scouts, regional scouts, so nothing too crazy there. I'm trying to think of the most notable thing that has happened since we last talked. I don't know if there's any, we haven't seen Tomlin or Colbert and probably won't for the rest of the pro day circuit. So have the pro day tracker updated, though, with where the Steelers have been. Yesterday they were at Middle Tennessee State with senior scout Rick Rapriche.
Oklahoma State, couldn't find out.
Nope.
It's still an unknown personnel member there, right?
Yep, unable, just for the life of me, could not even find a photo of a Steeler, scout or coach. So no idea who they sent there.
All right, and but I mean, we would think by now if where were Colbert and Tomlin on that day? Were they anywhere?
Nowhere listed. No.
Not on that very day, right?
Right, that day was pretty late. It was Central Florida, Minnesota, Oklahoma State, and don't have Tomlin. I'm pretty sure Tomlin or Colbert were at any of those places. We would have found them had they been there, but I don't know specifically who they sent to Oklahoma State.
All right, so recapping where Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin have been so far through the 2021 Pro Day Tour. Clemson, and I believe it was in this order as well. Clemson, Georgia, Auburn, Florida State, Alabama, Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, and Notre Dame.
Correct. Yeah, all the heavy hitters there. No surprises. They go to Power 5. They go to schools that have a lot of talent. That's always been their norm. But again, we know the history there. Last decade, in 2010, every single first-round pick has had Tomlin and or Kevin Colbert at their pro day.
True or false? The first-round selection this year will come out of one of those 9 schools.
I'm going to say true.
I'm going to say true. We have no reason to believe otherwise at this point. And I guess when you get out of there, out of the first round, obviously, look, I mean, we've seen Juju didn't know the Steelers had hardly any, interest in him, and he was a second round pick. Now, go back through him. Last year, obviously, Chase Claypool, the team not having a first round draft pick. The Steelers did have a heavy presence at the, and really they have for quite a few years now. I think the Notre Dame Pro Day and also wasn't shocking there, but. When you start whittling this thing down now, how outside of have you done anything going deeper into the tracker as far as outside of Tomlin and Colbert? Now, obviously, last year there's no data. There was no data. I think Tomlin and Colbert went to the Clemson Pro Day, and then COVID shut the rest of it down and all like that. But is there any other significant like scout or if a position coach shows up, how important is that?
I would have to do some research on that. I was looking yesterday at second round picks and the significance of Tomlin Colbert being there, and there really wasn't a strong correlation. As you mentioned, they weren't there for Juju. They weren't there for Sean Davis. They were there for James Washington. But there isn't as strong of a correlation. I don't know what the correlation could be for scouts and position coaches and coordinators and things like that. So that's a good question. I do not have an answer to.
You consider it a big find whenever you see Phil Kreidler show up, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's not a decision maker, but he's the highest ranking guy on the college scouting side and has been with the team since the 90s. I mean, I think he's the longest tenured person in that building, essentially, in terms of a front office member. So that's always kind of notable to me when I see Phil Kreidler show up.
Do you remember back? Hopefully you don't remember back. Something's wrong with you. Something's wrong with you anyway. But the USC Pro Day a couple years ago. Phil,
what year?
Juju's year was. Does Phil normally go out west that much or no?
I mean, just in general, they don't go out west that much.
Right.
Actually, that was my take yesterday. Was like, get a little manifest destiny for Tomlin and Colbert. They never cross the Mississippi. That was 2017. Let me see if I have anyone for USC. I don't even have anyone listed for USC that year. So okay. I'm considering that Juju said he'd only spoken to the Steelers at the Combine. I'm guessing they didn't send really anybody notable to that pro day.
Right. And, obviously Senior Bowl for seniors, we've talked about quite a bit, plays a huge role in this thing. Going to be interesting to see as far as underclassmen this year and those that maybe opted out, You would think underclassmen, and especially in the COVID world, what kind of role that will play on potential first round, because the Steelers had a very kind of senior-like experience, outside of what McFarland for the most part, I think last year, right?
He was the only underclassman drafted.
A very senior-ish like class. It'd be interesting to. And normally they haven't been, in the past with maybe a first or second round pick, they haven't been afraid to go underclassmen. But underclassmen usually after the first two picks is a little bit of a rarity for them, right?
Mm-hmm. Right, just because there's fewer underclassmen in general. Usually you're in one or two buckets if you declare early. Either you're a first-round pick or you're like, you made a mistake and you're going to be a late day 3 undrafted kind of guy. So there's just a smaller pool of players to choose from. So usually underclassmen at the top, and then they go seniors the rest of the way.
All right, anything else to talk about Pro Day related?
No, not really, I think. So we can move on here and stick with the draft, though, because I think some of the most interesting comments yesterday was the comments from Alabama running back Najee Harris, who was on a podcast with Adam Schefter and talking about some of the coolest interviews he had Zoom-wise was with Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and said that Kevin Colbert was there and the whole staff was there essentially to talk to him. We met with them in person, and virtually we know they've sent 6 players to the Bama, two pro days, the first and second combined, including Tomlin, Colbert, running backs coach Eddie Faulkner, etc. So Najee Harris checking almost every box possible to be the Pittsburgh Steelers pick at number 24.
Boy, could they have any more fingerprints over him or on him at this point than they already do? I guess the only real thing that you could point to, and it's really not that big of a deal, was the fact that the Alabama Pro Day that Colbert and Tomlin attended was the one that Najee didn't work out at, but I mean, he obviously made it to that. One would think that, they obviously have Zoomed with him and talked to him throughout this process and all like that. So, the fact that they were there and probably did talk to him in some shape or form that first pro day, I think is enough to check the box. And then obviously in the second pro day, they had the second group of mostly offensive people at that one, and I think Phil was at that one as well too. And even Eddie Faulkner put, not that it's a huge deal, but it's notable and it's worth writing about and talking about. Was Eddie Faulkner put Najee through his running back drills that day as well too. So is there any box that Najee doesn't have checked at this point?
I would say the only one he doesn't check is the age / senior status, because again they generally go underclassmen, and he is 23. But again, as I said before, I think that matters less for him in the running back position, because whether you're 21 or 23, it's not like your odds of being here 10 plus years are very high. So I think it matters less than if you're talking about an offensive tackle or some other position.
Yeah, and look, I mean, obviously I'm not nothing is going to change my mind at this point about what I feel, how I feel about running backs and running backs in the first round. Specifically, it's not one of my favorite things, but I don't make the decisions, and a lot of what we do, mostly on Steelers Depot and through this podcast, is try to talk about what's more likely to happen, as opposed to the Steelers going to sign Adrian Peterson, kind of talk that, that kind of stuff there, out there kind of talk. So, I've come to the realization that running back's probably going to be one of the first or second round picks, and the way things shaping up right now, it's hard to go against the notion that running back in the first round will be either Najee Harris or Travis Etienne. And look, age aside, workload aside, I mean, it certainly is shaping up like Najee. And that was a great interview. I don't know if you listened to the whole thing with Adam Schefter, Alex, but it really was a great interview. I mean, Najee really is a very, very likable guy. He told the story about having to get back for that pro day and driving all that way.
He said he slept I listened to it. He slept 50 minutes the whole day, basically.
Right. I mean, and him talking about all the different offenses that he's played in and how he's been able to adapt to that, and teams giving him playbooks. Yeah, I think he's just a no nonsense kind of guy. To hit on and I think was it you or Matthew wrote about what he had to say about
Matthew
about the draft. Who was it about?
Todd McShay's.
Yeah, McShay's comments about receiving and all like that. He had no issue firing back on that. I mean, that interview with Schefter seemed very, very open, and him talking about how the Zoom with the Steelers was one of his, or has been his favorite one, and how the Steelers were so involved, not only with just head coach and Mike Tomlin in that one, but really even defensive members of the staff, is the way I kind of took him his comments in that as well too there. So. Look, I mean, I don't know if Najee's going to be on the board at 24 overall. I mean, you could make an argument that there could be a team or two that might take him before 24. But, man, if he is on the board at 24, I think it would be a major upset if the Steelers didn't take him there.
Yeah, it's starting to feel like a question of not if they would take him if he's there at 24, but just if he'll be there at 24. And I think the two teams maybe ahead that you would have to start looking at and being worried about is Arizona at 16 and then more importantly Miami at 18, because they signed a running back, I think Malcolm Brown maybe, but they didn't sign any top level guy that would prevent them from drafting running back early in this class. So I think if he gets past 18 and the Dolphins, then he's got a really good shot to make it to Pittsburgh and a good shot to be their guy.
Right. That's where I'm at on this thing. Well, the only question is if he'll be on the board at 24, and you can make arguments either way. So look, some people probably have. You can make an argument that Travis Etienne should be running back one in this class. Just as easy as probably you could Najee. I have a feeling that Javante's not even though Daniel Jeremiah seems to be a Javante fan. I don't even think he was able to move him up that high. Above those other two in his latest rankings.
I was watching more Javonte over the weekend, and what I like about him is that he has the contact balance, but also the power too. Whereas an ETN has great contact balance, but the power really isn't there. So I like Javonte Williams more than I like ETN, to be honest with you. But I like Najee Harris more than any of those guys.
And I've already studied all three of them pretty good, and I like all three of them. Now,
how would you rank them though? You had to rank them.
Yeah, it would still probably be. And I said right from the get-go, I think that Najee was probably going to be my 1A. Now, I think him and ETN are right there, 1A, 1B, depending on what day you caught me on there. I let kind of the metrics kind of have Javonte fall a little bit. I didn't expect him to come in, as small as he is, and obviously the overall workload that he had at North Carolina was split, so he doesn't have the amount of carries. But I mean, he without a doubt he is in the top three in my opinion still, because one of the things that stuck out to me studying him the first time was that contact balance. He is a hard running back to get a hit on, and even if you do hit him, he does. You'll see some backs will hit and bounce off and maybe change direction quite considerably. He does it.
Right.
He still appears to be moving in most of the time in the same direction he was going before he was hit. But he is a little bit smaller there and a little bit lesser workload. Now, when you look at it from the explosive play standpoint, like we talked about several weeks ago, Travis Etienne and Javonte are ranked ahead of Najee Harris by quite considerably. However, if you dwindle that down to just 10-yard runs, which let's face it, how many running backs have 20-yard gains? During a regular season, what's high? Give me one though that has a high rate of 10 yards, and I could definitely live with that. And that's certainly where Najee is at Alabama.
Yeah, especially for a Steelers run game, just searching to get past the line of scrimmage. It feels like half the time. So your rankings would be Harris / ETN, and then Williams third.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. All right, gotcha.
And I've gone surface area on Sermon out of Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably something I'll get into a little bit more later on in this weekend, looking maybe more at his how his explosive runs happen in the same manner because I think you really can learn a lot about a running back. Two ways where I don't think running backs are evaluated enough, and that's how their 10 and 20-yard runs happen, and how they're able to function in the backfield when things go wrong. Turning potential negative plays into positive plays. I think those are because any running back can run through a nice hole, right? I mean, if a play's executed right, the way it's drawn up and all like that. I mean, that's why you see so many running backs. You wonder, man, why did that kid go undrafted? Kind of thing there. I think one of the things, and obviously pass protection plays a role in it, and pass receiving. But when evaluating these guys as pure runners, I'd really like to look at how their 10 and 20-yard plays happen, and how they're able to create in the backfield.
Yeah, I think create is the key word for running backs. There's got to be a stat for that, some sort of create stat where it's like yards per carry on plays where you were, touched at or behind the line of scrimmage, and right. Who has the highest. It's got to exist somewhere. If it doesn't, someone should make it, because I think that's such a crucial stat for all the reasons you mentioned.
All right, and obviously Sermon's right. I would have him probably 4 or 5 right around in there.
Yeah, the thing with this running back class is, I mean, there's strength at the top, but the depth here is not great, and so I think that's another reason why the Steelers are so focused on taking a running back early. And I know some people are dead set against that running back in the first round, and that's understandable. But I think from the Steelers' standpoint, they're going to sit there and say, "Listen, if we don't take one at 24, we don't think any three of those, the big three, Harris, Etienne, Williams, will be there at 55, and then we're left with some less than stellar options." The list really kind of whittles down, especially if the Steelers are looking for a bigger back capable of being a feature lead guy in this offense. So I think that's another reason why they're really pushing for a running back at 24, because if they don't get one there, then their options might become more limited at 55 and 87.
I mean, there is no way this team comes out of this draft without a running back in the first 2 rounds, right? I mean, there's based on what Art Rooney has said,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just hard to fathom that happening.
Right. No, that's kind of where my head has been at for a little while now. I think that all pushes in the direction of taking Harris or still Etienne, because what if Harris is gone, and then would they take Etienne at 24? I think that's still a decent possibility.
I think it is too. And look, they seem to, at least from what we could see from the pro days, they seem to have been all over Etienne at his pro day, and Najee getting more of the press right now at this point. Obviously, the Clemson pro days were earlier than the Alabama pro days there, but I do think though they have it Najee and then Travis, if I had to guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's hard. Could you make an argument that both those guys would be off the board at 24? I suppose you could.
I think it's pretty unlikely.
But I would go with you. I think it's unlikely. So I guess the question becomes, would they pull the trigger on either one of those two at 24? And from where I sit right now, my best guess would be that they would get one of those two guys.
Mine too, but I'm not as sold on Etienne. I still have a lot. I'm a much bigger fan of Najee Harris than I was Etienne. I think Etienne can be a playmaker and dynamic, but I just worry about the overall power and just needing some of those runways to kind of get going, and that's where he had so much of his success. And the fumbling too was a real big concern his senior season.
Okay.
So we'll see though, but I think obviously the Steelers not hiding their interest in either of those guys.
I think if it's not one of those two guys, I think it's likely Sermon. If they miss out on one of those,
right.
and maybe that kind of segues into where we want to go with this podcast next.
Yeah, with my mock draft, is that where you're leading?
Yeah.
All right.
And I thought it was fantastic. I thought you really put it together and the reasoning behind it. I'm excited to talk about a few of these guys you have in it too.
Thank you. Yeah, I like this one all. The last one I did, I'll admit, kind of sucked. The last mock I did,
they all suck depending on who you ask. I hate doing it for the sheer fact that people don't want to talk about the prospects. They just want to talk about he won't be there.
Sure.
I think some of the best discussions ever had on this podcast over the entire length of the as long as we've run it have been about draft prospects and the actual prospect, and not where the you have him in the 3rd round, he'll be off the board there by then. Chase Claypool is a guy, a perfect example of that last year. I liked Chase Claypool's tape, but I had him as a 3rd round guy, and he goes in the 2nd round, and all of a sudden I hate Chase Claypool. I got some nasty emails saying, well, you said he was a 3rd round and wasn't going to be what couldn't be drafted early. Look, I mean, all it takes is one team to draft a guy. And that's why we tell our guys generally when they do these draft profiles is try to put more of a day on when you think these guys, because trying to whittle down where an actual prospect will go within a 32 selection frame, I mean, all it takes is one or two teams to fall in love with a guy, and it really kind of throws the whole balance of the thing out there. So, that I get so tired of people wanting to kind of dissect where you have a player going as opposed to talking about what the actual player can do. And going back to Claypool last year, a guy that was able to make catches down the field, a contested catcher. The main reason I had Claypool as a third-round guy and not as a second-round guy overall was I did not see enough of him winning over the top deep, right? Remember that?
Mm-hmm. I do.
And what is the one thing still that he is really not done a lot of at the end? You know, throw out the catch against the Broncos that went to the house. That's one of the things still with him that we're waiting to see is can he go vertically, and I like to reference it as being the Martavis Bryant factor, or Mike Wallace factor. Can he just run away from people? We haven't seen that yet, and had he done that, he would have been up, more of a kind of a second round grade for me.
Right. Yeah, so that's where I think the focal point should be. And this is going to be a draft more than ever where I think it's just going to be completely unpredictable because this is probably the toughest draft for these teams in the modern era. Because I think even last year was easier in the sense of you had a full combine, you had a full college football season. You don't have either of those things here in 2020 or in 2021, I should say. You do have pro days, but you lost the combine and you lost the haphazardness of the college football season in 2020. And so I think that's going to make for an even more unpredictable draft where boards are just all over the place because information is just so scattershot.
All right.
All right, my mock draft here at number 24 overall. Wanted to mix things up. Went with a defensive pick here, which I know is definitely a surprise at 24, but went with Notre Dame. Speaking of Notre Dame, linebacker, athlete, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Linebacker,
Bless
safety.
You.
Yes, I'm still working on the pronunciation. Everyone just calls him J-O-K. A lot easier to say J-O-K, and I think he is A-OK as the pick at 24. If he slips a little bit, I think most people mock him in the whole teens, 20s, but not to get into that, argument about will he be there as we just talked about. But there are plenty of mocks as well that put him in the, later 20s. And I think with some of these linebackers like the Davis kid from Kentucky, rising up boards with a great pro day workout, and when you have so much strength at quarterback and offensive tackle, receiver, you got like Kyle Pitts in this draft, it's going to naturally push down some of these other guys at less marquee positions.
Definitely a run and chase kind of guy, right? And boy, athleticism. You talk about sparkiness, and I haven't gone deep into him. I don't know how deep you have gone into him, but the athleticism certainly shows up on tape there. Got a little bit of an attitude, not afraid to hit, tackle. Sometimes you'd probably, I think, maybe like to see him do a better job of wrapping up, right?
And he even admitted that in his pro day. He said he needs to not leave his feet as often.
Right. Bring his feet with him and wrap up instead of just trying to shoulder tackle. You'll see him do a few times. Give me two traits about JOK that make him a slam dunk first round talent.
Just overall athleticism at that frame, 6'1.5", 221, just a freak athlete. And then will be the other trait. I'll give you a couple, but versatility. He's capable of wearing so many hats, and that's so important against these offenses today that can be so multiple. And then just overall physicality. I think the hit power, that one hit he had, I forget against who it was, but in the backfield just lit up the running back. I think he's a really physical, freaky athlete that can wear a lot of hats.
He's kind of a superhuman too, right? Character off the chart.
Yeah, he was really entertaining in the pro day press conference. I don't know, obviously, everything about the character, but just 21 years old, too. Here's the thing about JOK is that he's a senior. He's a senior, but he's also 21 years old. So he's got that blend of being a senior, but it still has that real youthfulness the Steelers look for. So I know we talk about underclassmen with those guys a lot, but usually that's just because they're younger. But JOK is a young senior, just 21 years old.
He was very, very entertaining on the pro day call. And came off older than what he is. And look, obviously we don't do background checks on these guys like NFL teams do, but he certainly seems to pass the mustard as far as the character aspect. And did Tomlin let something slip at the at that little pro day soundbite?
Well, I think he was playing it up a little bit, but he did talk about, he's got some great talent there in the past, like Tuitt and Claypool, and he sat there and said something to the effect of, maybe we'll get another one of those guys here this year. And there's a ton of them. It's a great school. They got so much talent this year. And again, he's just checking every single box. He's young, he's sparky, good character, it seems, good production, Tomlin, Colbert at his pro day, checking all those key boxes the Steelers look for.
If the Steelers don't go running back in the first round this year, rank the position you would think that I would guess you'd probably go tackle or inside linebacker as probably the two most likely positions other than running back where the Steelers would go.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, maybe center too, but it's just harder to find that name to be the center pick at 24. You know,
I think I'm at the point now where I think center's going to push down quite a bit in this draft overall. I learned. I think we kind of learned a lesson. Look, Landon Dickerson, we talked about quite a bit. I think the medicals and stuff are going to push him down a little bit. I think Creed. I think maybe there's a little bit of overrated aspect to him. Look, I'm a huge Quinn Miners fan, but I think it's a little strong on him right now as well too. Another guy we're going to talk about in your mock draft here in a little bit. I think he's in here. Wasn't he? Josh Myers, out of Ohio State. He might end up being center number one. You know, I think in this thing by the time the dust clears here. So where my head is right now, I really think if it's not running back, I think it's kind of a split between a super sparky inside linebacker or a tackle as possibly being the selection.
Yeah, and I think JOK is just one of those guys where if he slips a little bit, you just sit there and say, we just can't pass on that talent. Yes, we know we have needs, and our intent was maybe to look at running back, but this is just too good of a guy that can solve so many problems because he can kind of be this Hilton Sutton type answer, not one-to-one in terms of body types or play styles, but Cam Sutton last year, and I wrote this in the mock draft in the article, was the answer guy defensively, just a 6 DB that wore a lot of hats, any situational game plan, week-to-week matchup kind of thing. He was always the answer, and now he's going to be a more static position at either slot corner or right corner, probably a little bit of both this year. So you don't really have that answers guy that can kind of be whatever you need him to be week to week. And so I think it's still important to have a defined role for a guy like JOK to fit into your system, but just somebody that can wear a lot of hats. You're losing some of that versatility because, the domino effect of you release Steven Nelson that's going to make Cam Sutton the more static player in your defense.
Best player available, both short-term and long-term, JOK or Najee Harris?
I mean, in terms of the value of the positions as well, I think it's hard not to go JOK, and I love Najee Harris.
I'm with you, and we will find out. I'm curious to find out the old best player available versus need. And look,
it's never either one of those for Pittsburgh.
Right. Kevin Colbert will try to sell it to you all he wants to. We can't, special players you can't pass up and yada yada. I'm hoping both those two will be on the board so we get to see because and once again, I have to go deeper into JOK. I've gone deeper into Najee. It's no disrespect to Najee, but man, you could see JOK being a 10, 11-year player in the NFL,
Sure. Yeah, again, just 21, doesn't turn 22, I think, until November. So it's not like he's going to turn 22 even by draft day or something like that. So really, really young. Maybe the production wasn't overwhelming. We didn't play much his first 2 years. Redshirt guy, I think, as well. Or maybe not redshirt, but just didn't play his first year. But, he was still productive overall. Him and Devin Bush next to each other. Because I would envision JOK as primarily an inside linebacker in the Steelers system. And him and Devin Bush would solve some of those issues of running backs, killing you in the flats the way they did last year when Bush went down.
Right.
All right, so that is my first round pick. Moving on to round number 2, the guy you mentioned, Josh Myers, the center from Ohio State. Big guy at 6'5", 310 measurables. Are actually pretty comparable with Marquise Pouncey. Their play styles are different. Myers is much more of a phone booth guy, or much more of a road grader type, but that fulfills the mandate of trying to improve this run game and get some nasty up front.
Once again, back to what I said. There are a lot of fingerprints all over this kid. I think too at this point. When you talk about when you look at measurables, when you look at Clem, not only Colbert and Tomlin being at the pro day, but Clem as well. Now, obviously, they had the other, they've got the other guard there. I think that's going to probably be a higher round draft pick on top of it. But the need for the center there, the program that he's coming out of. You did a nice comparison on Myers versus Pouncey and just the overall measurable aspect of them. The fact that 55-ish, right? Right around in the 50s seems to be about the right area for even center one, to be honest with you, in this year's draft. But if Myers was to be center two, prime category for him right here. I really think you might have nailed this one right here.
Yeah, I think some people could argue it's a little bit too early, but as you said, center's kind of wide open right now, and if he's your guy, I mean, he's your guy, and he's going to, I think, fulfill that mandate of being that plug-and-play center, someone who can be a mauler in the run game. I mean, he's big enough to play guard as well if you had to move him to guard. He's 6'5", 310. That's obviously great size. And this is me getting a little tinfoily hat here, Dave, so indulge me for a second here, but just one interesting draft nugget. Maybe it means nothing. It probably means nothing. But his dad played football. And Steelers just in general like athletic families, guys that come from athletic families. His dad, Brad Myers, played for Kentucky in the 80s. And I'm pretty sure, couldn't 100% confirm it, but I'm pretty sure Carl Dunbar at LSU played against Brad Myers for at least 2 seasons. So I just wonder if there's any long ago story about Carl Dunbar playing against Josh Myers' dad at back in the SEC days.
Yeah, that'll be definitely. I mean, if he winds up being drafted, that'll certainly be something that we'll beg for somebody to ask at some point. Don't
hold your breath on that.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone realizes that.
Yeah. Well, they do. They all read Steelers Depot. They won't admit it, but they do. Once again, I think of all, I think you might have nailed this one. And after kind of going back through and looking at I think the center that they're going to most likely end up with is either Josh Myers in the second round, and I know you're going to disagree with me, but I think a guy like Dickerson, either third or fourth round. I think he gets pushed down that far.
Yeah. You called that one right. I'm going to disagree with you. It's just going to take one team to clear medically, and someone will.
Okay.
The concern. Go ahead.
I could see it being one of those two players when it comes to the center position, though.
The concern with Myers is that he's not a great space guy. So if you wanted someone that did what Pouncey had done, pulling and moving out in space, that's probably not your guy. So that would be just the concern about drafting someone like Josh Myers.
And that was the difference. Pouncey was a first round kid too, because he had a little bit, little bit more athleticism to him to be able to get out there in space. But in today's, as we're seeing right now, you need guys that can push the line forward first and foremost now, and that's something maybe the Steelers have tried to go too much on the athleticism and not enough on the on the sheer power aspect of it.
Yeah, that's a fair point. All right, round 3, number 87. A lot of Ohio State guys here, unintentionally so, but sticking with another one here. And Trey Sermon, the running back, as you mentioned, I think if you miss out on one of the top guys in the first round for whatever reason, or Najee Harris or Travis Etienne, then someone like Sermon really comes into play just because I think they want size. They want someone who can have the frame and the bulk to carry the load, and Sermon, a big dude at 6'4", 215. Good production, but didn't have a ton of wear and tear. 450, I think, career carries, no more than 164 in any one season. And I think a guy that probably is growing and getting better, and kind of has some comparisons to James Conner.
Yeah, and once again, I consider that the cutoff mark right there.
The cutoff mark for Sermon
for running backs.
Okay.
As far I think the Steelers are going to come out of this draft with one of 3 running backs. It's either going to be Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, or Trey Sermon. And I understand why you went the way you did in the first rounder, because I'm with you. If it comes down to JOK, and I'm not fearful of losing my job for not delivering Art Rooney the second or running, here you are, sir. If you look at it just from an organizational standpoint, from a man, this guy is a special player, maybe 10-year Steeler. Defense is very important. in the NFL. If you didn't go that way, if you did go that way, I wouldn't blame him one bit, especially from what I know about JOK so far. Now, once again, I have not gone as deep on him as I have, say Najee Harris. But if they did go that way, I would still expect them. I think Trey Sermon in the third round at 87 overall feels right as well, too. Mm-hmm. So I guess what I'm getting at is I think this is very, very realistic option that you've gone here with these first 3 picks. And I think Baron Browning is another kid. Maybe you mix and match, and I think you had him as a potential choice. If you thought maybe Myers was too high in the second round, and maybe you thought you could get him in the third round or something, or even further down, I think you can mix and match some of these guys here. Now, I understand your consideration of Kellen Mond in the second. I think that's way too high on him overall. And I'm trying to look at Aaron. I don't know much about Aaron Robinson, the cornerback that you considered there in the second.
Yeah, potential slot guy, one of the UFC top DBs they have in this class.
And then your other third round considerations, I'm somewhat on. I think Quinn Miners is being pushed up a little high. Even though I'm a big fan. I think maybe you have Spencer Brown maybe pushed up around too high there, and I'm a big fan of his. Kenneth Gainwell as well. I think maybe pushed up a little bit high. But those are all guys that I think. Kenneth Gainwell, I think, would be a break emergency in case of, or break glass in case of emergency, right? Oh, we missed out on Harris. We missed out on Travis Etienne. We missed out on Trey Sermon. He would probably be that next back.
Yeah, it's partially that, and also just partially if you wanted a totally different style of back, not a Trey Sermon, not a Najee Harris, just kind of that athletic, dynamic space guy, closer to the mold of an Etienne. Then you would look at someone like Kenneth Gainwell, but I don't think that's the direction they're going to go because they want that feature lead back kind of guy. Yeah, Baron Browning. Let's say they go running back in round 1 and they're sitting in their round 2 and they want to go Baron Browning. That makes, I think, a lot of sense. And then with Spencer Brown, I think the RAS, the relative athletic score on Brown, was he was the number 1 offensive tackle ever in the RAS stat. And so I think a guy like that is not getting out of the third round.
Right. He would be, he'd be great to have. And even in the third, I really like the kid. I wonder if he's just getting pushed up a little bit too high though. But the athleticism, it's no denying, and it's on tape. And he passed the mustard at the Senior Bowl. He checked so many boxes and will for so many teams. So maybe you're right. But once again, Kevin Colbert said this is a deep tackle class.
Sure. Right. Absolutely. It is. Probably the deepest position is offensive tackle this year.
What's the biggest pushback you would say that you received? Not that we care. But I hate looking at the comments in these mock drafts because they're that's too. Nobody wants to talk about the prospect.
I think we got a lot of constructive feedback. There was some of that. I think the biggest pushback I got was that JOK won't be there at 24.
There you go.
That was probably the biggest pushback. Yeah, I tried to bend over backwards too in the article of the mock saying why I think he could be there because
they don't read
pushed
that
down
crap.
Other positions. Well, anyway, it was just a vocal minority of people. Other pushback, I don't know if there was any consensus on the pushback. Maybe just too many Ohio State guys, which is probably a fair point.
All right. He might not be there, but I don't think you can completely slam dunk it and say JOK will be. I bet my house he won't be on the board at 24. I don't think you can do that.
No, yeah, most people think he's going to be late teens, early 20s. So let's say he's at pick 20, he could be there at 24. Again, if a Davis from Kentucky gets drafted early, which it looks like he will be, and again, you just have such a strong class of quarterback. It's not like I chose a top 8 guy and put him at 24. I think that's a reasonable thought that JOK could slip a couple spots.
And all this perception comes off of outside stuff anyway, right? Mm-hmm. Because we have the mock draft machine simulators and somebody. It's not like until there's more AI involved in it, which hopefully there will be at some point. Looking at. I hope to live long enough where we have a a lot better mock draft machine that's run off of trends and needs and AI, and because all it takes is one guy one fanboy to input info into this thing wrong, and it's going to mess some of these things up. And also, there's always the factor of all it takes is one team, and that's screwed. You can't predict that kind of stuff there. But I guess overall, what I'm getting at here is if they did not go Najee or ETN in the first round, and if it was because of a guy like JOK on the board, then I could really see this thing playing out this way. Especially, I think the best pick that you have in this so far is Myers in round 2. I think that's really, really realistic.
Yeah, I thought so too. This should be a good time to announce, by the way, our Steelers Depot mock draft simulator inspired by Dave Bryan just has tight ends and edge rushers. I mean, the only guys you can draft. That's our simulator.
I might add some guards, some pulling guards.
Pulling guards.
Yeah.
Specific category is pulling guards. They don't pull, you can't draft them.
Right.
All right, round number 4, 128. Going edge rusher here, our first defensive pick with Victor Dimukeji, the edge rusher from Duke, kind of a stocky body, 6'1.5", 262. Steelers generally like to have those stockier types than more finesse, leaner type of guys. Good, consistent production, 7.5 sacks in 2020, 21.5 for his career. Good length at 33-inch arms, 7.09 3-cone reported, which is great time for 262. And he's a guy that probably becomes your number 3 outside linebacker right away because the depth here is just that poor.
Yeah, I'm kind of mad. I haven't, obviously gone.
Yeah, well, this edge rush class just is bad. It's hard to find. I mean, you're not going to find a great edge guy anywhere, especially in the mid rounds.
I think I would have been more, and you addressed it with the second, 4th round pick there. But I would be more apt to make sure I secured a more of a slot corner, Mm-hmm. And you have that segues into Shakur Brown out of Michigan State there with your next selection there. I've watched a little bit on him. Both of your 4th round picks don't excite me too much from what I know so far on them.
Fair enough. Yeah, Brown's a guy that came on scene, and he's my 4th round pick at number 140 with the comp pick for Javon Hargrave. 5 interceptions last year, though. And Steelers like playmakers. He's done a lot. He's had some big plays, post interceptions, yardage after the pick, stuff like that. But his pro day was pretty poor. He did run, I think, and this is a pro day time, like low 4.6s, which is, combine time, like probably 4.65, 4.66. So that's a pretty bad time. But I think, long speed is less important for slot than it is for an outside corner. He was a playmaker, did come on strong, and could fill that slot need now that Cam Sutton's going to at least be playing more on the outside than we anticipated, a month ago.
And I guess the other thing I would say is, maybe a tackle somewhere in here.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's just not enough draft picks to fill all the needs. I mean, however you want to shake this thing up. I mean, if you do a mock draft, you just realize that, I have to wait till this late day 3 to fill this position. That's what I did with tight end here. So it's just too many holes on the roster.
Right. All right. No 5th round pick, obviously, round 6.
Yeah, I do go offensive tackle here because it is a deep class at least, so I still think there's talent on the board with Jalen Moore from Western Michigan. Good athlete, good starting experience overall, tested overall pretty well at the Combine. Replaced Chukwuma Okorafor at Western Michigan, and he could do the same in the NFL with Okorafor being a free agent after the season. But I was a big fan of Moore State, Senior Bowl guy as well. I thought had a good week down in Mobile, and probably a 1-year developmental type of guy.
All right, I haven't watched much of anything on him. I noticed you bypassed John Bates. Really, that guy. I don't know. I think that he's not as vicious of a blocker as you'd like to see, and they obviously didn't use him a lot. I've started to look at some of his targets at Boise State and all, but that guy could be a nice little find later in the draft, John Bates. But you chose to go Ohio State tight end, who a lot of listeners I think like as well.
Yeah, hopefully you're a Buckeye fan because you would have liked this mock draft. A 3rd Ohio State guy. I didn't even realize that till I was recording a video and realized, I'd have 3 Ohio State guys in this mock. But Luke Farrell at round 7, 245 overall. Good size, 6'5.5", 251. And I think just can be a better receiver in the NFL than he was in college. Just 9 catches his last 2 years at Ohio State. Just really wasn't used much in the passing game. Primarily a blocker, that's why you're drafting him, but he did test well. I think he had like a 36.5-inch vertical at his pro day workout. Just had good numbers overall, so hopefully he can become a little bit more of a receiving threat in the NFL than he was in college.
It feels like they're going to have to wait. I mean, we're going to have another conversation about another tight end here in a little bit that we've already talked about. But it just does feel like tight end's going to have to get pushed down in this thing.
Yeah, I mean, they just needed to go sign Jesse James at this point. Honestly, you draft a day 3 tight end, you sign Jesse, and that's probably the best way to go about it at this point.
Right.
Because in my world right now, Luke Farrell's your number 2 tight end. Your 7th round pick is your backup tight end, which is not a place you want to be because that transition for tight end from college to the NFL is just so difficult for any guy to make, even first round picks, even top talents, let alone a 7th round pick.
I'm not saying, I'm just saying, but Pat Freiermuth and Jesse James both averaged 12.9 yards per catch over their 3 seasons at Penn State.
You borrowing the tinfoil hat I had on earlier.
That's the old Spider-Man pointing at each other.
All right. Well, hopefully he's a little better than Jesse overall, but maybe not. All right, round 7.
Earmark that. We're going to get to it.
No, I'm sure we will. Number 254 overall, going here with a flyer because it wouldn't be a Kevin Colbert draft without drafting.
You have real quick there. You considered KJ Britt. He's another guy, the Auburn linebacker from the Senior Bowl. There, you considered him in round 7. That's a guy I think Steeler fans need to circle as well too. I think that kid's getting undersold. No, he's more Vince Williams than he is JOK, right?
Right.
Not super. Probably not super sparky or isn't super sparky overall. But if you're looking for that late round linebacker that can play on special teams right away, that can, probably be more Vince Williams like. I don't think he's a slam dunk every down linebacker, but that is a guy that has Steeler written all over him, and I think he will be drafted at some point. I think it'll be later than earlier there. And if they don't get an inside linebacker type early, I think that could be a guy that Steeler fans need to circle.
Yeah, very much like a Vince Williams type of guy, but the question there would just be, is he going to be anything more than a special teamer run thumper in this, pass-happy world?
Right.
All right, round 7, 254. Again, wouldn't be a Colbert mock draft without taking a receiver, taking a flyer here with Florida's Trevon Grimes, 6'4", 220, averaged over 15 yards per catch in his career. Just kind of went through some clips before publishing this mock draft, and he is just very much an above-the-rim, go-get-it kind of guy that really made some difficult kind of circus combat catches last year. The catch against Vanderbilt was one of the best that I saw all last season. So potential Z-type receiver who could replace James Washington in 2022 if Washington is not re-signed.
You're with me that they're more apt to get a Z, right? Didn't you push back early on me on that? I get maybe that was before Juju or whatnot. But.
Yeah, this is also 7th round, so it's not take your pick. It could be really anyone at this point, but that was just kind of my thought process. But I think Grimes is a draftable player at least.
If they address the wide receiver, look, I just don't get it with the Auburn kid Schwartz.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling they like him. I would not be surprised if he shows up being drafted by the Steelers.
Where?
Yeah. Where is the huge question with him overall? If they go wide receiver at all, which I'm not convinced they will at this point right now, and that would be quite a monumental development, being as how nearly all but 2 or 3 years Kevin Colbert's been in Pittsburgh, he's drafted at least one. I sure hope they get one that can stretch it. If not, wait for my kid out of Nevada next year.
Who?
The wide receiver out of Nevada. I sure wish he would have came out this year.
Oh yeah, that was the guy you were high on, and then he didn't declare.
He did the right thing. He stayed in school.
Yeah.
What is his name again? I've already forgot about him because he's not coming out.
Right.
Coming out this year. I'll find him here in a minute.
Yeah, but so Grimes is the pick. So I'll kind of recap the draft while you find out our mystery man here. So JOK at number 24, Josh Myers.
Romeo Dubs. Romeo Dubs.
Okay.
Remember that name. Romeo Dubs.
Romeo Dubs.
Right.
Gotcha. All right. So again, JOK at number 24, Josh Myers, the center, Ohio State, round 255. Trey Sermon, running back, Ohio State, round 3. Victor Dimukeji, the edge from Duke, round 4, followed up by Shakur Brown, the corner from Michigan State, also in round 4. Jalen Moore, offensive tackle, Western Michigan, round 6. And then round 7, Luke Farrell, the tight end, also from Ohio State. And then Trevon Grimes, the receiver from Florida. So overall, I'm happy with this. I think it still turned out pretty good, even though I went defensive with a defensive player at number 24. I still think we're able to then immediately address fixing the run game and the offensive line by taking Myers and Sermon in round 2 and round 3. So I think you still check that box, even if you didn't start that mission in the first round.
Yeah, look, like I said, most people are going to tend to focus on the first 2, 3, 4 picks anyway, in this thing. And I liked it the moment that I saw it, and it made sense the way it goes there. And once again, I think if I had to pick one pick that I think you potentially nailed in this thing, I think it very well might be Josh Myers, either in the second or third round. I think you can make an argument that he'd go either round there.
Yeah, we shall see. And I think PFF's latest mock draft also has JOK. So anyone who says that he can't be taken at 24, well, there's PFF mocking it as well. So that'll be my last mock draft until my final one, which will come out right before the draft. So
good job. Now let's talk about the tight end conversation and revisit Pat Freiermuth. Have you looked any more at him since we've kind of talked?
Not since our last conversation.
I've looked. I've gone deeper into him in his 2019 film. On top of it, Alex, I like him. I like him as a Steelers prospect. I like him. I like him overall. Is he tight end number 2 in this class? Maybe by default. I think. I think Brevin Jordan's right there with him, but Brevin Jordan's a little bit undersized. I guess it depends on kind of what you're looking for overall. If you're looking for an all-around kind of guy, jack of all trades, master of none, I think Freiermuth is your guy. All right, but he's not that much more. He's a 2-round better prospect, I think, than Jesse James was. How's that?
All right. Well, James went in the fifth. So you're seeing Freiermuth as a 3rd-round guy.
I view him as a mid to late 3rd-round guy. Period. I just where is it on the tape that's got people saying that this to me there's no argument to be made for him being a 1st-round tight end. You would agree with me on that, right? Have you seen enough tape on him to say that?
Yeah, I never really thought he was a 1st-round candidate. He was always, again, in that gray area of like a mid-2nd round, early to mid-2nd round guy in terms of where I think he will go.
I don't view him as a top 50 player in this year's draft class either.
Let me ask
at this point.
Let me ask you this, because I think in terms putting aside the draft round projection, do you think he could become a starter in this league? Is it where is his ceiling at?
I do, because the sheer fact that if you don't have, you got to have a tight end that can block.
Mm-hmm.
You just, in today's NFL, it really it's never gone away. The aspect of having a tight end that can both that can spread out and collapse down to the end of the line of scrimmage is huge. Okay. Now look, people say he's baby Gronk. He's not baby Gronk. All right. He's not there yet. Can he get in? Can he get into a low side Gronkowski? I think that's pushing a little bit with him as well too. I like him. Don't get me wrong. And I love tight ends that can do it all. It's just, he's not a master of it all aspect of it here. Now, look, he did his season was cut short last year by a shoulder injury. It would have been interesting. And the quarterback play, obviously, at Penn State the last 2 years has not been great. But usually these kind of players can rise above that. And he doesn't stick out on tape as much as I thought he would versus the hype when it comes to players that you would deem being slam dunk top 50 players.
But you do still see him as a starter in this league, which I think says something.
Yes, I do. But I mean, okay. I'm not crawling all over myself though to run that card up at 55.
Are you saying the earliest you would take him is at 87?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or move up to get it, move up in the third round,
yeah.
maybe to get him. But it's hard to predict stuff like that. I have gone up and down his tape, Alex, and I'm trying to find a reason why I would run the card up at 55.
Okay.
And look, I mean, the Steelers like him, and I think it's obvious the Steelers like him. And I think there are certain scenarios where you would go, okay, this guy is off the board, this guy off the board. There are arguments to be made of him being the pick at 55. No earlier than that, though. But I'll go back to what I just said. I just think he's a couple round prospect better than Jesse James was. And apologies to I've been, but that's where I view. And I would not oppose to him being the Steelers. Look, they need a tight end. They need somebody to pair with Eric Ebron. I think he would be perfect for that. I don't think, however, that he's worth the 55 pick, if that makes sense.
Do you think, though, and this is a philosophical question, but do you think some of these guys like Freiermuth get hurt because they don't have that standout trait and they're just good in a lot of areas, and so it kind of hurts them because there isn't that wow factor the way that there is for maybe some athletic receiving tight end that has some highlight reel plays or some excellent blocker that's running some dude into the ground? Do you think that hurts some guys like Freiermuth?
I mean, look at how some of these guys are used, right? Either they're the Pitts type players that really stick out now as far as tight ends, where really they're just glorified wide receivers. And Pitts blocking is maybe a little bit better than what I give him credit for or whatnot. But I guess because that type of player is just the way they're used at the college level right now. It's more about can they get open and stretch the field down the field and catch that way more so than it is, he's a great blocker. You go back to George Kittle and all. I mean, Iowa just uses their tight ends a lot differently, right? Now, he did show when thrown to that he could do some things, but there just wasn't a lot of it there on the tape to you were having to do more of a long-term projection on him, which I thought I was able to do fairly well with him overall, not only as a blocker, but as a receiving aspect. There was enough there in him in a violentness after the catch that I thought, okay, well, this guy could actually be, if somebody used him properly, could be a receiving threat as a tight end in the NFL, even though Iowa didn't. Now, his blocking was there. Holy moly, was it there? I mean, this was a guy that I mean, I don't care what down distance, what point in the game it was. He would run somebody over into the first row just out of sheer want to do it. So that aspect was there. I think it's obvious. I'm not as excited about Freiermuth as I was Kittle, but it boils back to what you just asked. Can he be an every down starter in the NFL for a team? I think the answer is yes, but once again, no, I'm not excited enough to run that card up with him at 55. The Steelers might be, though, because they do like him.
Well, that kind of confuses me, though. If you think he'd be an every down starter or tight end, then how is he not worthy of a second round pick at the least?
Because I don't think he's that bona fide of a guy. I think he's more the third round kind of tight end. I think there's a value on a player, and I don't view him as close to being a top. I think there are going to be other guys on the board that present more value at other positions that make picking him at 55 kind of a head scratcher.
Okay, yeah, I get that. But man, I mean, what do you do at tight end then in this draft class? Because
I think you go late. I think you do what you did. And you try to pick one of these diamonds, more diamonds in a rough, and say the 5th or 6th rounds. And if it means that you get more of a blocker than you do a receiving threat, well then so be it. I would much rather have the tight end in this draft be a better blocker than I would him being a field stretcher, because I'll after Ebron leaves after Ebron leaves, well then next year I'll go and get me that guy.
Right. Well, is this going to become another cycle of go sign a free agent or trade for a guy the way it was with
it could be. I haven't even looked at the tight end class next year. I mean, could it be? Yeah, absolutely it could be. But give me a more of a blocker than anything else. Mm-hmm. And just where is it on Freiermuth's tape as a receiver?
Did you go back to his first year? Did you ever
I looked at some of it. I haven't. I didn't see anything more that makes me go. I mean, this guy's still only 2. You look at it, he has not even 100 catches, right?
Obviously the shoulder injury, I think, had that not happened, would have got him to that point.
Yeah, but I can't butt him right into the 2nd round.
Well, I know, but how many catches do you need for the tight end? It's not like that position naturally has, how many catches did George Kittle have at Iowa?
Right.
Not 100.
But there was enough on tape for at least for me to say, hey, look, where did he go? Where did Kittle go?
Yeah, but 5th round.
After Joshua Dobbs, that's where he went. That's a correct answer. Remember that. That's always the answer to that question.
Yeah.
Okay. When I ask you where George Kittle went, the proper response is after Joshua Dobbs. That's a proper response. 23. Obviously last year was cut short. 23 catches. 43 in 2019. But once again, I mean, it's the average depth of target, average yards per reception. Yeah, quarterback, blah blah blah. But there's no semblance in there that makes me feel that I could use this guy down the field extensively. The way the Steelers should probably use Eric Ebron more if he could catch the ball.
I mean, basically, by the way, I think if you're sitting there saying you're taking a late day 3 tight end in this draft, you're almost resigning yourself to needing to sign someone in free agency or trading for someone, because the odds of getting an impact tight end right away in next year's draft class are pretty slim.
I mean, I haven't even looked at the class, so I don't know. I can't answer that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how good the class is next year, but just these classes in general are not great. Tight end generally doesn't have great draft classes, and then B, just the fact that we know that tight end is such a tough position to transition to from rookie or from college level to rookie season. I mean, those guys just never make an impact right away, like almost never.
I mean, how deep have you gone into Tommy Tremble?
I like Tremble a lot. I think if you want to talk about a tight end that could really be in consideration for Pittsburgh, I think Tremble's a guy we need to probably discuss more. And he might be the 2nd best tight end in this class because he's an excellent blocker and he was an underutilized receiver at Notre Dame. So I think that's a guy we should probably be discussing a lot more.
Can you make an argument, a good argument? I've watched. I like Tommy Tremble too, and I need to watch a little bit more of him, but maybe by the weekend. Here's what I'm getting at. I don't think Pat Freiermuth's hard to overtake as tight end 2.
Right, but would you take Jordan over him? Because you get the question, is Jordan the poor testing and the size?
Yeah, where the Steelers go, I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I think the Steelers are going to draft him. But yeah, Tremble might be.
And where does Hunter Long figure into this out of Boston College? That's another guy that we haven't talked about.
Yeah,
so I think a few of our listeners have.
Yeah, I know guys like Mel Kiper like him. I just never found that standout trait. I didn't think he was a great receiver. Didn't think he was a very good blocker. It's kind of almost Freiermuth light. Kenny Yeboah is more. I would consider him more Ebron-ish, if you want. So, I mean, I know he had a decent Senior Bowl and all like that, but pass on that. McKitty is probably a guy that fits what the Steelers would look for. I think there are. Let's rattle them off here, at least from the tape that I've looked at, and the possibility of them being Steelers. I think it's Freiermuth, Hunter Long, Tremble, McKitty,
Farrell, Bates.
Is that in order, or is that just the
That's
list?
I think that's in order.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm trying to get any other name there that is worth mentioning.
I don't know anything. Do you know anything about Noah Gray out of Duke?
Yeah, he had a good Senior Bowl too. I think he had that one really good catch, a one-handed grab or something near the end zone. He's a little bit undersized though, I think.
True or false? Pat Freiermuth will get drafted in the first 2 rounds of the 2021 NFL Draft.
Yeah, it's a good over. That's a very good Vegas over/under, Dave.
Would you draft him?
Yeah, I think I would take Tremble over Freiermuth. I don't know if that directly answers your question or not.
Sir, answer the question.
Got the hot lights on me, the bright lights on me there, Dave. I mean, I would draft him. Yeah, are you saying when you saying would I draft him?
Would you draft Pat Freiermuth at 55? Oh no, yeah, I'll give you 64 picks here. Where is he?
Yeah, I think he goes in the top 2 rounds.
Okay.
Maybe it is a little bit later in that second round. Because I think there's a good, decent chance Tremble comes off the board before Freiermuth.
Okay. What do you like more about what am I looking for in Tremble when I take a deeper dive?
Just that nastiness, that run blocker. Kind of even used as a fullback H-back type, but he's also obviously been used as an inline blocker. But just a guy that's really physical at the point of attack.
All right. Are they going to draft a tight end this year?
I don't know. I mean, they just historically haven't done it. And there's so many other positions to address, and the tight end class isn't great. So I'm kind of feeling like they won't do it until later in the draft, a 5th-round pick, a day 3 selection. But we'll see.
If they don't, they almost have to sign Jesse James, don't they? And probably pay a little bit more than
sign somebody. I mean,
there's not anybody out there right now. At this point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, some veteran tight end that we're not missing, or someone that we don't really like that much, but some veteran guy that isn't a rookie who's now being shoehorned into your number 2 tight end spot.
Or a tackle.
Or tackle, yeah. Joe Haig. Joe Haig's your number 2 tight end this year.
Right now he is.
Yeah, not wrong about that. All right, Dave, anything else on Freiermuth you wanted to?
No, I think I got it all out of my system there. Look, and I'm sure this is going to get framed now because I'm sure we have a lot of Penn State fans, that listen here. I like him. I just don't like him at 55. I think you get more bang for your buck in the 3rd round with him, and I think that's his proper slotting is just inside the top 100 players in this draft.
Okay, that's fair. All right,
is that me? Hey, I'm hoping he becomes a Steeler, to be honest with you, but yeah. I don't want to see it happen in the first 2 rounds. Is all, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I think that's very fair, and I think it's important for us to be able to criticize these guys sometimes too, and not just fluff every player up and be like they're great, they're going to be a great player, and it's okay to talk about some of the warts. Because reality is about half these guys, probably more than half these guys, are not going to make it, and that's just how the draft goes.
And here's the thing: it's not our job to sell. It used to be a habit of mine early on as a blogger when doing these mock drafts to try to sell the prospect. Who am I selling it to? Right? I mean, I'm trying to make a point that in a mock draft of why I think X player will fit here in this round for the Steelers. But if you can't look at a player and pick out as good and as bad, and if you become like a used car salesman there. Look, me trying to sell a prospect to a reader when, if I'm not 100% that the kid could be the pick. In other words, you got to be able to go pros and cons on these sure. kids and say, look, this is where I would take this player here. Yes, he fits the Steelers, but here's why I don't think he would be the right selection here. I think that's going to another. It's like Claypool last year. I viewed Claypool more as a 3rd-round pick. The Steelers obviously felt otherwise. Does that make me wrong?
No, because you're talking about just the value of it. I guess you were off on the value of it, but what I care about more than anything else is just your evaluation of the player himself. I
thought he could be a Steeler. I just didn't think he'd be a Steeler in the 2nd round.
Right. I think the more interesting discussion is always about the player himself and the good and bad of the player, less so on what round you think he's going to be in, or where do you rank him? Is he wide receiver 5 versus 6? Those stuff become meaningless immediately after the draft. I think the player themselves are always the more interesting things to talk about.
I think the most interesting aspect of all this is trying to put together throughout the draft process a list of, say, around 75 guys and getting the Steelers to pick their however many, 7, 8, 9, however many picks they have. This year right now it's 8. Getting the Steelers to pick all their picks out of that group of those players. And it's virtually impossible, but I think you can come fairly close to most of that.
Yeah, and we've had our hits before. TJ Watt and Bud Dupree, we felt like were guys who were going to be Steelers. Benny Snell was someone that I felt like was going to be a Steeler. So, yeah, you just put the information together and see what you get.
Right. All
right, Dave. Last thing I think I wanted to note here, just a brief NFL news note yesterday that broke yesterday afternoon. Sam Darnold, who some Steelers fans hope would come to Pittsburgh. I know we've discussed that occasionally on the show before. He will not become a Pittsburgh Steeler. He has been shipped to the Carolina Panthers for a 6th-round pick this year and a 2nd and 4th-round pick, I believe, next year.
Not a bit surprised he got traded. Not overly shocked the team that he was traded to. Not shocked one iota that Steelers didn't deal for him.
Yeah, I didn't think it was impossible to do so. I didn't think there was any barrier that said the Steelers couldn't do it, but I didn't think the odds of them actually doing it were very high at all.
Yeah, other than doing something with Joe Hayden, and it didn't make sense to me for the Steelers overall, period.
Right, and now Carolina will pick up the 5th-year option, which is no surprise considering they traded for him, and that all but locks in Zach Wilson at number 2 for the Jets. So the way the draft is shaping up to be, Lawrence 1, Wilson 2, some quarterback at 3 for the 49ers. It's the smoke is still Mac Jones, but it could still be Trey Lance or Justin Fields, but let's just assume some quarterback there at 3, and then number 4 is kind of when things start to really get unpredictable with the Falcons.
Yeah, and I think Adam Schefter saying teams locked into the first 3 overall picks. The Falcons have received trade calls from multiple teams and are open to moving. So we'll see what happens there.
How many drafts have had 3 quarterbacks go in the top 3 picks? That's got to be
not many, right?
Common. Yeah, I'm sure it's happened before, but I don't know the last time it has occurred.
But you got to have a quarterback, right? Got to have a franchise quarterback. In today's NFL, so I don't think we should be overly surprised if it happens, especially with this class, because I think it depends on who you ask, who people view as the top quarterback, top 3, or really the slam dunk top 3 quarterbacks in this draft. I think it really depends on who you ask. There's a lot of Mac Jones stands out there, I think.
Hey, they're talking to one,
right? Some think maybe the 49ers could be in the play for that,
A lot of rumors about Mac Jones. Now, I don't know. My gut feeling was that they were going to target Trey Lance and have him sit for a year behind Garoppolo and then trade Garoppolo or move on from him in some fashion and then have Lance start next year. But I have no idea what the 49ers are going to do.
Me either.
So we'll leave that to 49ers.
It's not my job.
Yeah, above our pay grade. All right, Dave, anything else you want to cover, or we can move on to some reader emails and close up today's show?
Was there any other hot buttons that we had to push today?
I think we pushed them all. By the way, check out Steelers Depot. Ross McCorkle has a great interview with Michigan fullback Ben Mason. You can check that out on Steelers Depot, about a 10-15 minute conversation. Some good context and insight on the Mason's career with the Wolverines.
Boy, he's doing a great job. He's only done 2 interviews so far, and he looks like he's done them all of his life. So great job to Ross on that. We hope to have we hope to turn that segment into just outside of just draft. Really more of an open mic interview kind of process here. So obviously right now he's working on draft prospects, but once draft season is over with, we hope to take that thing in maybe a little bit different. Any interviews, overall players or whatnot. So should be interesting to watch that thing kind of progress there. All right, you ready for some emails?
Yeah, by the way, what's your terrible take today? Any preview of your
I
terrible
don't
take?
have a
You don't have
damn
anything?
idea right now.
All right. Looking forward to it there. All right. Rate your
Yeah.
emails. What's up?
Damian Anderson, thinking of the Steelers in need of players and low on cap spend, could you see them trade out of the first? Signing the 24th pick is the equivalent to an extra second or third, $2.5 million in draft charge, blah, 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 blah. Damian, I will be shocked if they trade out of the first round. And don't look at it as a save money aspect, because you're forgetting the whole roster displacement thing when it happens with what the contract is. So the last thing you should be thinking about when you're thinking about the Steelers potentially trading out of the first round completely is the cost and the cap number of it. Never look at it that way. Now, if you want to make arguments for them to trade out and get draft capital and all that way, sure. I mean, I think, but even then, when did the Steelers have done it? They put a lot of premium on first round draft picks, and nowadays first round draft picks come with that fifth year option, which adds even more value to it. You would really have to get a nice haul, in my opinion, to move out of you. You'd have to be guaranteed to get the player that you'd still probably would have taken at, say, whatever pick, and B, you'd have to get a nice haul of immediate return, talking about second and third round picks, I think, in the present year's draft to make it worth a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think trading down makes a lot of sense for the draft capital reasons, not for financial considerations. Out of the first round entirely is probably unlikely. Kevin Colbert's only traded down once in the first round ever, back in 2001, moved from 16 to 19, so it's just a small move down, still got Casey Hampton. But I think it makes a lot of sense for the Steelers standpoint and from a draft capital standpoint. But it takes two to tango. You got to find someone who wants to come up with you. It's not like there's going to be a quarterback sitting there that teams are going to want to move up for. They could, of course, move up for a different position. But, you never really know if you can trade down until you're on the clock, basically.
Right. Look, I'm not opposed to them moving down a couple spots. If they could, especially if they could pick up another third rounder or something like that. Boy, they sure could use it, right? Get the extra third rounder to get Freiermuth. That's it.
There you go.
That's the ticket. You know what that clip come from? Old John Lovitz from Saturday Night Live. That's the ticket. That was before your time, wasn't it?
I'm safely betting that it was.
Okay. I forget what his character name was during all that. But anyway,
was this in black and white? And
no, this is Saturday Night Live. I mean, I think as early as like the 90s even. But man, the 90s now feel like the 60s, I guess, to most of you.
Yeah,
people.
It was 30 years ago, the 90s. You're old.
Yeah. Let's see here. But yeah, look, I'm not opposed to them dropping down a couple spots. I mean, I depending on who's there. But I think trading out of the first round, I'm not going to put it at 100%, but it's right there, 99.9% that it won't happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unlikely.
Let's see. This one comes in. Tom Skinkle writes in, Dave, longtime listener, first time called. Great job with the draft big board that Scott puts on. But where is Kellen Mond? He has to be above Kyle Trask, and they did have folks at his pro day. Colbert has said several times Haskins signing will not limit them in taking another quarterback in a draft. I'll hang up and listen.
Yeah, maybe it's just because it's a paralysis of analysis, and we're getting so flooded with information because we've been on these pro day calls. We've got to talk to these guys. But there does seem to be a lot of smoke and talking to some of these mid-round quarterbacks like Kyle Trask, like Kellen Mond, Jamie Newman, guys like that. Is that just all smoke, or is there something more to it?
Man, I've said it all along. If they're going to draft a quarterback this year, go get a top-tier guy. In the first round and be done with it. I mean, do you really want to draft he could be the backup for the next 4 years guy in the third or fourth round or whatever?
No, you're preaching to the choir, but look at 2018, strong quarterback class, just like now, and the Steelers ended up taking, trading up for Mason Rudolph in the third round because they didn't know about Ben's future, which is where they're at right now, and they felt like there was a guy there they liked. So even though I wouldn't do it, and I'm with you 100% on that, my philosophy, go big, go home at quarterback, the Steelers don't have to subscribe to that, and generally they haven't subscribed to that idea.
Yeah, to me, there's just so many damn holes. I would be against it if there was so fewer holes. And, of course, we could probably go back through the tape and say, man, they have so many holes this year going into the draft, Right. But it really does feel like it feels like they could use 4 more picks, right?
Right. But if they feel like they have a hole at quarterback in terms of the future, which they do, there's no one under contract for next year. If you have a hole at quarterback, that's your biggest hole.
Kellen Mond just doesn't do it for me, and especially not in the top 3 rounds. Now, if you want to
just any mid-round quarterback, you pick your favorite mid-rounder.
If you want to do it in 4th or 5th round, have at it. That would be my view. I guess his view is, would you rank Mond above Trask?
Personally, I think I would.
Maybe that's part of his argument. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's what he's saying. I think I would take Mond above Kyle Trask.
Okay. Chuck Griffith writes in, offensive line talent in the draft. There was a trend. I don't think we're going to be able to give him the question or the answer that he wants. There was a trend where draft classes lacked offensive line talent. This was sometimes blamed on changes in the college game. Last year and especially this year seemed to be strong offensive line classes. Is the trend reversing, or could these 2 years be exceptions to that trend?
Sorry, I'm caught mid-yawn. That's a good question. I don't know.
I don't know if I could give a great answer to that at all.
No, I don't think I can either. I think we'd have to look at some longer term, next couple of years, and then just 1 or 2 seasons, and try to make a conclusion if there are trends reversing or not. I don't have a great answer for that, unfortunately.
I don't either, other than just the tackles are more athletic, bigger. Bigger, stronger, fat, $6 million man, Planet Theory aspect. I'm a lot more. Maybe it's something they're putting in the milk back. When these kids are being born or whatnot. I don't have a great answer to that at all. I have no answer to that. Sometimes blamed on changes in the college game. Last year and especially this year seemed to be. I guess overall, does the college game being a more spread play into stronger offensive line? I still don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, the argument's always been the spread systems have kind of just watered down the need for great offensive linemen and stuff like that. And I guess he's saying, these last 2 classes have been better, and this class is really strong at tackle. So is that trend changing at all? I think we need to give it more time, and I think this could just be ebbs and flows of draft classes. Sometimes they're better than others. I think we need to look at a 5-year subsection than just 1 or 2 years, and then that can probably give us a better answer.
Hey, Ma, start a chili. All right. Okay. I'm not going to break out the podcast. It's just time for the chili to get stirred there. Hey there, fellas.
That was some Step Brothers Ma the Meatloaf.
Yeah. Kevin Amaya writes in, hey there, fellas. Hope you're well at the depot. Just wanted to rehear your opinion on hypothetical that the Steelers don't draft a running back high or even at all in order to bolster the line and other needs. Their quote unquote Steelers reasoning for this would be their hope that a new physical run-blocking offensive line would bring out the best in Snell and McFarland. This and the likelihood that they can sign a desperate yet effective free agent for cheap post-draft. Nothing against the top running backs coming out in the draft. I just feel that the team doesn't necessarily want to tie their future to any one of those guys if there are better players available. Would love to hear your thoughts. Kevin's in L.A., by the way. I went to L.A. I don't mind L.A. to visit, but I like kind of like Manhattan Beach and Redondo Beach and Venice Beach and Santa Monica up here and all. I like those areas of LA much better than I did LA itself. I don't know where Kevin lives specifically in LA, but that's your travel guide portion of the podcast today. Kevin, I bet you buy my fungible running backs are fungible theory, pretty much. I guess back to opinion hypothetical. Could they pass on a running back early? I suppose, but man, they sure seem to be shown once again, just based on what they're looking at. They sure seem to be looking at a running back early in this thing, and I think it starts there. And if they don't get a guy like Najee, if they don't get a guy like Travis Etienne, it sure feels like it's going to be a Trey Sermon, and then somebody's going to have some explaining to do if they don't come out of the draft with one of those three running backs to Mr. Rooney.
Yeah, that's the big key there is the Rooney mandate of improving the run game. That is one part offensive line for sure, but it's also a part running back as well. So I think you can do both. I don't think it has to be either or. I'd be very surprised if they don't take a running back. That Davey was a potential day one starter in this draft. I think I'd be shocked by that, even if it doesn't come in the first round.
I feel where Kevin's coming from, obviously,
Sure.
and I don't doubt him for maybe feeling that maybe if they went better offensive line. My whole thing going back to this thing is why in hell have you gone running back middle rounds the last, Connor, Samuel, Snell, McFarland. I mean, how's your scouting been on those guys?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a fair question.
Which granted, I would want them to draft one more middle round than I want early rounds, but you haven't hit on one of these guys, overall.
Well, I think Snell's been okay for what he was drafted as a fourth round.
But why are you doing it 4 years in a row?
Yeah, I mean that's a bigger, more important question. Sure.
Let's face it, Jalen Samuels was a waste. I mean, to pick a tight end there.
Oh, that's cold.
I mean, I didn't know he wasn't type. People that listen to podcasts get the joke there, I think. But I mean, it made no sense. Okay, where'd you get him? 5th round, right?
Well,
I mean, was it even worth? I mean, based on what you went before him and after him in drafts, did that even make sense at this point?
Yeah, I mean, hindsight's 20/20, but that pick didn't work out too well.
But anyway, look, Kevin, I think you get the drift that Kevin and I mean, that Alex and I both feel that they're going to draft a running back, whether we like it or not. They're going to draft a running back early this year.
Mm-hmm. And 24 is an obvious possibility.
Let's see here if we can get one more, maybe from Cohen Verschuren. I think he follows us and quite active on Twitter there. Cohen, sorry for messing up your last name there. You got to put some phonetic in there. Mm-hmm. With the Steelers seemingly being very and understandably all over Najee Harris, the question has to be, which teams are the biggest threat in terms of picking him before us at 24? And do you probably anticipate another move up to get their man like they did with Devin Bush, albeit a smaller move later in the round? Boy, look, I understand why they went up as far as they did to go get a guy that they liked in Devin Bush. I'm going to be disappointed they move up for Najee, and I like Najee, but I don't see that happening first and foremost. Second, who are the teams most likely to pick Najee ahead of the Steelers? I would think the Miami Dolphins are in there and play at one of them, right?
Yeah, at 18, they're the biggest threat right now. The Dolphins at 18 is one of the first spots where you have to hold your breath and say, is he going to be the guy if you want Najee Harris to become a Pittsburgh Steeler?
And then anybody else you throw into that?
I mentioned, I think, Arizona at 16. I think that's less likely, but I guess possible. But it's really just Miami. I mean, I have to go through who's in between them. I don't know the list off the top of my head right now. But I think Miami and Pittsburgh are the two most popular places where Najee Harris is being mocked to.
All right. I would agree with you. And he's from Belgium. So we have Cohen in Belgium. And once again, I think he's pretty faithful follower on the Twitter machine as well, too. Thanks for the email there, Cohen. Let's pull out one last one. Christopher King, NFL draft question. Any chance the organization leaves the draft without a running back when given the opportunity to be the feature back? Benny Snell has shown to be capable of option. He's not much of a threat to break off huge runs, but he wears down defenses and he is a decent pass protector. Snell, McFarland could be a good 1-2 combo, especially if the offensive line play improves and they stay healthy. Look, Christopher, you're not going to have to, I don't think, really, my thought, my fungibility aspect of me figures then why, and we've heard Mike Tomlin praise Benny Snell, and we've seen for a fact that Snell gets better as games go on. And one of the endearing qualities about Najee Harris is he is a back that, and one of the key things I think that Nick Saban said about Najee Harris when we talked to him the other day was the fact that Najee is a back that gets stronger as the game goes on. He has a very Derrick Henry kind of quality to him, and just so happens both of them come out of the same program. But that's one of his qualities there. But Snell, in his limited work, Snell's gotten stronger late in games as well too. Could Snell and McFarland be a good 1-2 combo? I don't know if we're going to be able to find that out or not.
Yeah, I don't think we will. I think, I like Snell. I certainly have not given up on Anthony McFarland. I don't think the team views either of those guys as bell cows as feature backs, especially McFarland, but also Snell. So I think they need to get some new fresh blood in there to get this run game better. You got to bring in some new personnel that starts with offensive line to me, but it also includes running back as well.
And back to really the first part of Christopher's question is, any chance your organization leaves the draft without a running back? Man, I would say no.
Yeah, I cannot see a scenario.
I can't see him getting out of first
3 rounds.
Rounds. I was going to say 2, but I could see a scenario crop up like you, where they were maybe a Trey Sermon in the 3rd, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I really first 2 days.
Not that's the way I'd go. If Alex's JOK was on the board there, boy, they'd have to tie me down, to quit from running a card up like that,
Yeah, so we'll see. Yeah, I'm not all on board with the idea of taking running back in the first round. I'm generally not crazy about it, but I think there's a obviously overwhelming possibility that will be the case.
Our job, first and foremost, is to try to predict what the Steelers will do, and then analyze it after the fact, and what maybe we would have done after the fact.
Exactly.
So, Christian Perry, one last one, Alex. I lied to you. Podcast question. Who are some of your guys in this draft class? Might not be the best prospects, but the guys you love to watch in this class. He says his would be Michael Carter, out of the other running back, UNC, TCU safety, Darius Washington. Didn't you have him as a potential guy on your mock? Didn't you look at him?
I did. Yeah, I did. I think he's a potential fit.
And he says, and Pat Freiermuth would look great in black and gold. Christian, yes to the statement. He would look great in black and gold. I'm just not, hopefully I made that clear. I'm just not top 55 when it comes to Pat. Boy, some of that Quinn Miners tape still, Senior Bowl tape too, is just hard to get around. Right, I really, really like those kind of guard/centers, nasty, on the move kind of guys there. I'm trying to think if there would be anybody be a close second right now. Who are guys that you just love? Your guys. Who is your guy?
I'm big on all the Bama guys: Harris, Dickerson, Mac Jones. I like Cam Bynum, the corner from Cal. I liked James Hudson, the tackle from Cincinnati. Eichenberg from Notre Dame. I'm throwing a lot of names here right now, but those are some of the guys that I really. Amari Rogers,
Clemson. Whittle them down. Who are your guys? 3. Give me 3. 3 of Alex's your guys.
Amari Rogers, the receiver from Clemson. Mac Jones. I'll go with the quarterback from Alabama, and I don't know on the third guy there. I'll give you those 2 though.
All right.
I'll give you Dickerson from Bama as well, the center.
Man, you really like him, don't you?
I do. Again, medically, that's the concern, but on tape, he's a stud.
All right. I think we've covered the gamut here. Let's see. We are, we got about an hour 45 minutes today, right?
Yeah, good show today. I'll be back on, Friday, unless any sort of major news breaks for tomorrow.
All right, sounds good. So let's see. In the meantime, you can follow me on the Twitter machine at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex on the Twitter machine at Alex_Kozora. Please tweet our stuff out. Please retweet it if you like it. That helps us out. Also, follow at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Both of us are on the YouTube machine. You can find Alex's channel and the Steelers Depot channel there as well, too. Start to get a lot of stuff put up weekly on that as well. The Terrible Take comes out daily right now at 5 o'clock Eastern is when we try try to put that out. That's been fantastic hit. On the weekend, we try to have at least one guest person, and Dr. Mel's been doing Sunday, and that's been going absolutely fantastic as well, too. So if you're not going to miss one, don't miss Dr. Mel's on Sunday, her terrible take. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar. And also for an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button, upper right navigational bar. For $25 for one calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of Steelers Depot. And with that, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.